Welcome back to the Bryan Devore Connection. I'm your host, Bryan Devore. You may be a loved one who is chosen to take care of your loved one's estate. But what happens if you're the one who's chosen and you're being accused of something for being a beneficiary as well? Wow, that sounds like it could be a little sticky. Here to talk about that topic and how you can avoid those situations is Melissa Lum with Bellator Law Group. Melissa, thanks for coming today.
Thanks for having me, Bryan. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. This is a very important topic, and I've heard this a lot. They've probably made TV shows about it.
Yep.
But first, who are you and how'd you get into law?
Sure. Well, my name is Melissa. I'm an attorney with Bellator Law Group. I've been an attorney for about 15 years, and I kind of fell into law. I was looking for something to do after I graduated from college, and I worked a few years, and I had a friend, coworker that I worked with who always knew she wanted to be a lawyer, and so she convinced me to go to law school, and here I am.
Cool. And there's a lot of different areas of law.
Yes.
Why estate planning?
So, I do estate planning, estate litigation. I actually started out my career originally in estate planning, and then I went on to do a variety of other things. I litigated employment lawsuits, business disputes, and real estate disputes. And then I was looking for something that was a little bit more niche, that kind of blended everything. And estate litigation was the perfect mix because I can utilize my background in all of these other areas because they're present when we are litigating estate disputes. There's always business issues, real estate issues, as you know.
Right.
And then, and sometimes employment issues related to the business.
Yeah. So accused of being chosen,
Yes.
is what you kind of headlined this, which I thought was really, really good. And I've seen so many situations, and they say what brings out the worst in people are weddings and funerals, right? And
Right.
so this is on the funeral side when someone passes,
Yes.
and all the dirty laundry comes out, and the relationships with the siblings between them and other family members. So talk about what you see and how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So as an estate litigator, a lot of people don't really understand what that means. So I help families navigate legal disputes after a person's passed away. And those legal disputes often involve suspicious circumstances under which a will or a trust was created or changed, mismanagement of assets after the person's passed away, lack of transparency where the person who's managing the assets maybe isn't communicating and being transparent with the beneficiaries. And so what we often see walking through our door is where somebody is being accused of doing something wrong. They're often accused of elder abuse, of coercing changes to an estate plan simply because they were named or given a gift in the estate plan. And so by way of example, we had a case where we represented a wonderful woman who was married to her husband for about 2 decades. And, this was a second marriage for both of them. They both had adult children from prior marriages. And the husband was sick for quite a long time, a couple of years before he passed. And in the last 6 months, his decline was drastic. He had a drastic physical decline where he actually couldn't even talk, and he was speaking through a machine. And during this time, he decided he wanted to make changes to his will. And so he changed his will to give his primary residence that he and his wife lived in to his wife. And after after he passed away, his son sued her. And he sued her for elder abuse, claiming, my dad was in, a bad physical and mental state. He didn't know what he was doing. And you essentially bullied him into making this change. And we tried to settle the case. It didn't settle, and we ended up going to trial. And what we focused on in order to exonerate her was dad's personality. Is what kind of guy was this guy, right? And we showed the court that he was a smart guy. He was a very particular guy. He liked things the way that he liked them. And he was not one to be told what to do. He wore the pants in the relationship, in most of the relationships that he had. And so that really resonated with the court because when we were able to show that pattern through all the witnesses of family, friends, caregivers, medical providers, that this guy was really, a force to be reckoned with. And that up to the day he passed, he was the one, in fact, bossing other people around, right? Even though it was through this machine, he definitely showed his personality. And so we got a really good result for her. But, this was still a very difficult situation. This lawsuit came on the heels of her losing her husband. So she was really never able to properly grieve. It took about 2.5 years for this to resolve.
Wow.
And lots of money, right? And on top of that, it created permanent fractures
Right.
within the relationship. So, there's a lot of negative ramifications of this situation. And so what are the takeaways here, right? I think number one, communication, right? Had dad been more communicative, had he been more strategic about how he communicated these changes, when he communicated these changes, I think it could have alleviated some of the tension. And then also using an estate planning attorney. Unfortunately, dad decided he wanted to make the changes himself.
Oh, yeah.
And not use an attorney. And, the attorney is really there to help speak for you after you're gone. And so if he had used an estate planning attorney, I think it could have potentially allowed the case to resolve a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So, there are things that he could have done different in that situation, but there are times where you do everything right and you can't avoid the fight.
Yeah.
So, I have another case where we represented a caregiver. And she was a lovely woman. She took care of an elderly man who was kind of abandoned by his family. He had a couple of kids who, one was in San Diego, one was in another state, but they didn't pay a lot of attention to him. The caregiver was the one who was his everyday person, making sure that all of his needs were met, but then also the one celebrating life with him, right? She brought her friends and family over to celebrate holidays, his birthday. And the family wasn't there.
Yeah.
And when you're an elder, right, you really appreciate that. And so he wanted to show his appreciation by giving her a gift. And he had a variety of real estate. And so he decided he wanted to give her just a small portion of the real estate portfolio. So he gave her a house in his estate plan. And he did it right. He used an attorney to make the change. And he even hired a second attorney to do what we call a certificate of independent review. And so when you get that, the second attorney is basically attesting to the fact that I've spoken with this person, they know what they're doing, they want to do it, they're not being improperly coerced to make this gift, right? So he did all of these things.
I's dotted, T's crossed.
Yes, exactly, right? Something that we rarely see.
Yeah, yeah.
He wrote notes to family and to his caregiver about why he was doing these things. He was very transparent, even during the time that he was alive, that he was very grateful to her for everything that she had done for him. And he didn't pay her a lot. So this was kind of his way of, compensating her as well. Unfortunately, when the family found out, they sued her. She found herself
After he passed.
Yeah, it was actually when he was like in his final months.
Okay.
So he was actually still here, and then he passed during the course of the lawsuit. But she, she had to spend time defending herself, and so they sued her for elder abuse. They said, you took common theme, right?
Right.
You took advantage of my frail father. You coerced him into giving you this gift, and we aggressively litigated for her and we were able to resolve the dispute. But as you can imagine, right, she still spent time, emotion, and went through a lot of stress defending herself. And she spent her own money doing it. She eventually got her gift, but again, right, it wasn't without negative ramifications.
Right.
So
it's interesting. So in the first case, didn't necessarily put everything together that would have been ideal.
Right.
Second case did, still the lawsuit.
Yes.
And it usually stems from something in the past that you are not even aware of.
Right.
Dad did something to the kids or wasn't the right parent, or in the kids' eyes anyway.
Right.
Wasn't looking out for me as a kid, so I'm going to do this now. It's what I'm owed, it's what I deserve.
Yes.
And then you see things blow up in that kind of situation.
Right.
And it's interesting how in the first case, you focused on who he was, not this is what this paper said and what this paper said, but based on who he was and his personality, clearly you can see that he meant to go this way.
Yes.
And there was not the abuse. That must be hard without having that sort of tangible evidence to prove someone's intent.
It is really hard. And so that's why it's so important to think about these things in advance. And so one of the things that we really encourage, is if you're an elder and you think a fight might break out, come talk to us. Get your estate plan done, but certainly come talk to us as estate litigators, We fight these fights. And so our goal is really to help you mitigate any damages, reduce the likelihood that a full-blown lawsuit's going to break out, and reduce the likelihood that your family is going to walk away with, permanent fractures in the relationship. We can oftentimes try to get everything out on the table or propose solutions that you didn't necessarily think of that can at least, maybe there'll be people who are still unhappy,
Right.
right? But we can, again, avoid a full-blown lawsuit, or at least, mitigate what's going to happen afterwards, and make sure that your wishes are carried out and that your money is not being spent fighting.
Right. Right. So bottom line, you need to talk to her. Melissa's information's on screen, phone number and website as well for Bellator Law Group. But some really eye-opening things. You don't want this to happen. You want to get everything all I's dotted, T's crossed, button everything up, so these types of things don't happen. There's no guarantee it won't, even if you do everything right. But these are certainly some good tips on how to avoid it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bryan.
Thanks, Melissa.